Good morning, everyone. Tonight is going to be Yud Ches Nisan, so we're going to learn Sotah Daf Gimel, the daf for tonight. We left off yesterday on Daf Beis, Amud Beis, 6 lines from the bottom. The last word on the line, Amar Reish Lakish. Okay, says the Gemara. We're talking about kinoi, about warning, about the man warning his wife. Amar Reish Lakish, says Reish Lakish, Ma Lashon Kinoi. Why does the Torah use the word kinoi? What does the word kinoi mean? Something that places kina between her and others. The word kina, besides for in our context of a meaning that he warns his wife, it can also mean jealousy and hatred and argument. So he says that kinoi, the warning of the Sotah, is something that places jealousy between her and others, or hatred between her and others. Alma comes out from here that Kasavar, that Reish Lakish holds that kinoi al pi atzmoi, that when a man warns his wife, he warns his wife by himself. He doesn't need to have two Eidim to warn his wife. Why? Because a man warns his wife not to speak to a certain guy, and no one knows that he warned her because he's able to do it by himself. The Amri, and they'll say, my dekama, what's going on over here? The kabadla, that she's separating herself from everyone. People are going to try to talk to her and she's not going to answer. They don't know why, but she knows that it's because her wife warned her. They don't know that her wife warned her, that her husband warned her, sorry. So therefore, obviously he holds that a man could warn his wife by himself. But also the Mabad Bada, and they're going to start to hate. They're going to think that she's just ignoring them. But Rav Yemar bar Rav Shlemia, Mishmei da Abaye, Amar Rav Yemar, the son of Shlemia, said in the name of Abaye, Davar hamato kina beinoi lebeina, that it's not something that causes hatred between her and others, it's something that causes hatred between him and her, between the wife and the husband. Alma comes out that Kasavar there, and Yemar bar Shlemia, who said in the name of Abaye, that Abaye holds that kinoi al pi shnayim edim, that you need to warn your wife in front of two witnesses. So therefore, since there was two witnesses, everyone knows already that she was warned because the two witnesses spread the word around. The EU who and the only hatred that's going on over here is between him and her. So the vikine is ishtoi, the warning, the kinoi, the hatred that's happening because of this warning is between the husband and the wife, not between the wife and other people. And turning to Daf Gimel, Alma Kasavri, so from both of these opinions, that kina means hatred, that the asr lakanis, you're not allowed to warn your wife because kina, jealousy, is a bad thing, it's a negative trait, and asr lakanis, you're not allowed to warn your wife because it's got this negative connotation. Now the Gemara says, Umanda Omar, we mentioned an opinion yesterday that mutter lakanis, that you're allowed to warn your wife. So ma lashon kinoi. So then what does kinoi mean? Can't be something negative because the Torah allows that. So Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, in kinoi lashon asra, the word kinoi itself in lashon kodesh mean in the holy language in Hebrew means to warn. Like we have the pasuk in Yoel. There in the days of Yoel, there was a big plague of locusts that was destroying all around, and the pasuk says, "Vayikane Hashem warned the locusts, the artzay, about his land, not to destroy his land, Eretz Yisrael." So we have the word in Tanakh of kinoi, which means warning. So according to the opinion that says that you're allowed to warn, the word kinoi means that just means to warn, as it does elsewhere in Tanakh. Okay. Tanya, we learned in a Brayso, Reb Meir used to say, Adam a man does a avera, he sins in private, and Hashem announces it in public. Like it says in the pasuk, that there will be the spirit of jealousy will come over him. And the word va'avar means that it's going to come over him, and we're going to see in a second that it also has other meanings. But the fact that the wife did an avera in private, and then the husband gets aroused with this spirit of jealousy without even knowing any facts yet, and he starts to suspect her, that comes from that comes from Hashem announcing it in public. And then not only that, it says that the spirit passes over him, and the word for passing over, avera, also means to announce. Remember, like we have a pasuk in Parshas Vayakel, when Moshe told the Jewish people to bring all the different supplies to build the Mishkan, and the builders of the Mishkan came to Moshe and they said the people brought too many things. We have too much for the Mishkan. So Moshe sent out a message to all of the Jewish people to stop bringing things, and the pasuk over there says, "Vayitzav Moshe commanded, vayaviru kol b'machana," and they sent out a message in the camp of the Jewish people to stop bringing things. And the word he uses is vayaviru koil, that they pass through a voice, they pass through this This announcement that no one can bring anything anymore. So by aviru means to pass through, to pass over, and avar olav, the same, and an ark, and the context of vayakal means to announce. So when a person does an avera secretly, Hashem announces it in public. Okay, next. Rish Lakish said, "Ein odom over avera elam ke nichnas by ruach shtos." A person only does an avera when the spirit of foolishness comes over him. Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, ish ki siste ishtoi. When a man's wife will turn astray, that's the first pasuk in the parsha of Sotah. And the Torah uses the word sista, and sista is spelled with a sin, which means that it could be read tishta, when she's going to become stupid, like from the word shaita, foolish. So when a person does an avera, it's a spirit of folly. The natural state for a Jewish person, is to do what Hashem wants, to do what the nefesh elokis wants of him. And when a person is doing something against the will of Hashem, it's obviously a spirit of foolishness that's coming over him. Taught by Rabbi Yishmael, it was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael. How come when it comes to the case of a Sotah, where the man warned his wife, and then she secluded herself, and that was all in front of Adam, and then one aide says that he saw the act of cohabitation between her and another man. That testimony itself from one witness makes her usher on her husband. It forbids her on her husband forever, and they have to get divorced. How come the Torah believes one witness? Because this matter already has a basis. Why? The man already warned his wife in front of Adam. Then Vinistira, she secluded herself in front of Adam. And then after all that happened, one of the witnesses says that I saw that she actually had a relation with that guy. So it's not such a far stretch to say that it's a true thing. Over later, Papa Abaye says Rav Papa Abaye, he asked him, when the Torah says the word kinoi, that he's warning his wife, the Torah says that pasuk after the psukim about seclusion and the psukim about the cohabitation, after the kinoi, after the stira and the tuma, that's when the pasuk about kinoi comes. So how could you say that we're saying that one aid is believed because there was already kinoi and stira, but in the Torah the kinoi happens at the end? Amar lei, so Abaye answered him, the avar, when the Torah says about kinoi, about warning, it says the avar of ruach kina v'kinoi, that this spirit of jealousy came upon him and he warned his wife. It's the avar, is ukvar avar, that it's something that happened in the past. It's not saying that chronologically first there was the stira, first there was seclusion, then there was tuma, cohabitation, and then there was warning. No, the warning that it says at the end is something that's happening all the way from back in the beginning. The Torah is referring to that the avar of ruach kina, that this happened first. Elamayata, but then we have another pasuk that says the word va'avar. Va'avar lachem kol cholotz in Parshas Matos, when the tribes of Gad and Reuven, they told Moshe that they didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael together with the rest of the Jewish people. They wanted to stay on the other side of the Yarden, on the Transjordan, because they had a lot of cattle, and the Transjordan had a lot of pasture, and they wanted to stay over there on Ever HaYarden. And Moshe made a deal with them. He said, okay, if you guys are going to go into battle together with your brethren, with the rest of the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael, and you're going to send troops to the front lines, and your troops will pass before the Jewish nation. So maybe we're saying that if by va'avar the word va'avar means it happened already in the past. So could you say that va'avar lachem kol cholotz by Parshas Matos also happened in the past? It can't be. It's Moshe is telling them something that's going to happen in the future. So it says the Gemara, Paket, Hasam, in Parshas Matos, it says in the pasuk, continuing in the pasuk, that the land will be conquered before the Eibush there, before Hashem, and then after Teshuvah, then you guys can go back to your land, to the Transjordan, and after you already won the war. So obviously, from the context of the psukim, you could understand that it's talking about something that's going to happen in the future. But in our pasuk, Stam va'avar, just the word va'avar means something that happened in the past. Mashma dilab. And also, to add to that, when in our va'avar by Sotah, it says va'avar, if you're going to say that it means something in the future, then the whole context wouldn't, the pasuk wouldn't make sense, because it says that, because then the pasuk would read that the woman secluded herself with the guy. Then there was an aide that said that she had a relation with the guy, and then the guy warns his wife. Well, obviously the warning happens first. Why is he warning her if he already knows that it happened? Okay, so va'avar means that it already. Rabbi Shmuel's yeshiva taught that ein adam mekane de ishtoi, a man only warns his wife, elim ke nichnas by ruach, only when a certain spirit enters him. So now, like it says in the pasuk, va'avar olav ruach kina, that this spirit of jealousy comes over him. V'kine ishtoi, and he warns his wife. So my ruach, what is this spirit? Rabbanan Amri, the Chachamim say that it's a ruach tuma, a impure spirit. The Ravashi says ruach tara. It's a pure spirit. It's a spirit of purity, because he's a very tznius person. Umistabra, and says the Gemara that it makes sense. Kemanda amar ruach tara, according to the opinion of Ravashi, that says that it's a pure spirit. That when Rabbi Shmuel's yeshiva taught that there's this spirit, they meant a pure spirit. Why? Tanya, because we learn in a brisa. The pasuk says that he warns his wife. So Rishus, Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael says that this mitzvah to warn a person's wife is a Rishus. The Torah isn't saying that you have to warn your wife, but the Torah is giving permission to warn your wife. Rabbi Akiva says that it's actually an obligation that when a man suspects his wife, he has to warn his wife. So if you're going to interpret the first brisa from the house of Rabbi Yishmael that a spirit enters him, that it means a pure spirit. So then that makes sense. Shapir, it's good. But if you're going to say that when he said that the spirit enters him, it means an impure spirit. The Torah is telling a person that he could, or that we're having a machlekes, whether it's a rishus or whether it's a chayva to warn the person's wife. If we're saying that it's an evil spirit, obviously it's a bad thing. So when Rabbi Yishmael's yeshiva taught that this ruach that enters a person in order to warn his wife that there's a spirit that enters a person, they meant that it's a pure spirit. Okay. Gufa, now let's go back to this machlekes that we mentioned between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. The pasuk says in Parshas Nasa that the man warns his wife. Rishus, Rabbi Yishmael says that it's a rishus, that it's a permission. It's not saying that you have to; it's permitting you to. Rabbi Akiva says that it's actually an obligation. Another pasuk in Parshas Emor says lo yitama. The Torah says that a kohen is not allowed to become impure. He's not allowed to come into contact with a dead body. But then the Torah says that his 7 relatives, his father, mother, son, daughter, wife, brother, and sister, who's unmarried, he is allowed to become tamei to them. So the Torah uses the words lo yitama to her, and meaning all those 7 relatives, he can become impure. So Rishus Rabbi Yishmael says that the Torah is giving you permission to. It's not saying that the kohen has to. Rabbi Akiva says no chayva, that when the Torah says that he should become impure to his sister and to the 7 relatives, it's actually an obligation that he has to become impure. The next pasuk, the pasuk of Parshas Bahar, the Torah says about an Evet Knani, a non-Jewish slave. The Torah says that you have to that they should work for you forever. You should make them work for you forever. So Rishus to be Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael says that this is permission. The Torah isn't saying that you have to make an Evet Knani work for you forever. It's saying that you don't have to free him by an Evet. If he's not allowed to work for you forever. A Jewish slave is not allowed to work forever. He goes out after 6 years. An Evet Knani, the Torah says he could work for you forever. Rabbi Akiva says no. Rabbi Akiva that it's actually an obligation that you're not allowed to free your non-Jewish slave. Okay, that's the brisa. Amrle Rav Papa Abaye. Rav Papa said to Abaye, he asks him, Amri la Rav Mesharshi Rava, and some say that it was Rav Mesharshi asking Rava, Leima Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Akiva b'chol ha'Torah kula hachi pligi. They're arguing in so many cases whether it's a rishus or a chayva. Maybe they argue in the entire Torah whether all mitzvahs are a rishus or a chayva. That Rabbi Yishmael holds that mitzvahs are a rishus, that when the Torah says to do something, it's just giving you a suggestion that you could do it. And Rabbi Akiva says that it's a chayva. So answers back Rava or answers back Abaye, no. No. Everywhere they agree that when the Torah says a mitzvah, it's a chayva. You have to do the mitzvah. But over here, in these 3 cases, the argument stems from a way that you interpret psukim, from a basic argument on how we're supposed to interpret psukim from the Torah. And we're going to go through each one, showing how they all interpret it differently. We learned the first case was about Sotah, that a man warning his wife. So Rishus, Rabbi Yishmael says that it's a Rishus, permission. Rabbi Akiva says that it's an obligation. So my time with Rabbi Yishmael, what's the reasoning of Rabbi Yishmael to say that when the Torah says that the guy warns his wife that it's only giving permission, that it's not saying that you have to? So says the Gemara that Rabbi Yishmael is Savar Loki Tana. He holds like this Tana, the Tanya, as we learned in the Brayse. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that Klape Shamra Torah the Torah says in Parshas Kedoshim that a man is not allowed to hate his fellow in his heart. You're not allowed to hate your brother in your heart. You're not allowed to hate another Jew. So Yochel could go in Zu. So you might think that prohibition of hating extends to this case where a man suspects his wife of cheating on him. So Talmud Leimar says the Torah of Avral of Ruach Kina that the spirit of jealousy comes upon him. V'kina Sishta, and he warns his wife. The Torah is granting permission that even though usually you're not allowed to show hatred to another person, in this case, in the case of suspecting the man's wife, the Torah gives you permission to warn your wife. Rabbi Akiva. Now that we said that the Torah has to grant you permission to warn your wife after the Torah prohibited hating each other, so how does Rabbi Akiva learn that you're allowed to warn your wife with flowers? Rabbi Akiva says, Kino Yachri. The Torah says 2 times the word Kino, 2 times the word warning. And since the Torah says that the guy warns his wife, and it says it 2 times, 1 time is to teach you that he's allowed to, and the 2nd time is to teach you that he has to. Rabbi Yishmael. So what does Rabbi Yishmael now do with the 2 kinos, the 2 times it says that the man warns his wife? So these are the 2 kinos. The pasuk says, a man warns his wife, and she taka was defiled. Or he warns his wife and she wasn't defiled, meaning that we have a doubt whether she taka, whether she actually had a relation with another man or not. And the Torah expresses it 2 times by saying that she did have a relation or that she didn't have a relation. And the Torah uses the word vikina, warning by both of them. And it says it twice. So Rabbi Akiva learns that it's actually a chayil. Rabbi Yishmael, what does he do with that? Yishmael says, since the Torah is trying to show that we have a doubt whether she taka had a relation or not, and it has to say, and she had a relation, or that she didn't have a relation. So it says, meaning the Torah could have said, it could have just said in one breath that he warns his wife and she had a relation or didn't. But in order to be symmetric, the Torah just puts it twice. And according to Rabbi Yishmael, according to Rabbi Yishmael's opinion elsewhere, the Tanah of Rabbi Yishmael, the house of Rabbi Yishmael, the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael taught that kol parsha shenimber v'nishnes, anywhere in the Torah that it says a mitzvah 2 times, lo yinishnes ela b'shvil davar shenis chadish. But the only reason why the Torah says it 2 times is because since this halacha is a chiddush, this halacha is a novelty. So therefore, the Torah says it 2 times to express that this is the way the mitzvah is, even though it's a novel thing. But the Torah says it 2 times just to reiterate that fact. And you shouldn't learn something from an extra word. Rabbi Akiva, on the other hand, every time the Torah says an extra word, Rabbi Akiva has to learn a new din from another word, from an extra word. Okay. Next, moving on to the next case. Lo yitama. To her, he shall become impure. So Rishus, the great Rabbi Yishmael said that the kohen becoming impure to the 7 relatives is a Rishus, it's a permission. Rabbi Akiva said that no, it's actually an obligation. So my time with Rabbi Yishmael, what's the reasoning of Rabbi Yishmael who says that it's just permission? So says Rabbi Yishmael, the Torah in the beginning of Parshas Zemar says that Moshe should say to the Kohanim that lenefesh leitama ba'amav, that they shouldn't become impure to any dead body. And then when the Torah wants to say that, however, if the 7 relatives you are allowed to become impure, so the Torah expresses it in a way of saying lo yitama, that you should become impure to these 7 relatives. It's not saying that you have to; it's saying that you could, because you might think that you can't even become impure for them, because the Torah says across the board that you're not allowed to become impure, that a kohen is not allowed to become impure. So it says lo yitama, that he can become impure to the 7 relatives. Rabbi Akiva who says that no, that becoming impure to the 7 relatives is actually a obligation. So how does he see that? Because Rabbi Akiva says that the Torah says like this: Ever and say to the kohanim that they can't become impure, except to his relatives, to his father, his mother, his son, his daughter, his wife, his brother, and his sister. And then it says again, lo yitama. It says again at the end that he should become impure to them. And since it says it 2 times, meaning the Torah begins by saying he should never become impure except to these 7 relatives, to them he should become impure. So why does it have to express that twice? So says Rabbi Akiva, to tell you that it's an obligation, that he must become impure to them. Rabbi Yishmael, so now back to Rabbi Yishmael, now that you have the Torah saying twice, expressing in 2 different ways that the kohen can become impure to his 7 relatives, why does it have to say it 2 times? So Rabbi Yishmael says that Taka, I learned that he could become impure from from Kiyam L'She'erei, from the beginning, where it says that he's not able to become impure except to the 7 relatives. And the Lo Yitama in the end, where it says that he should become impure to her. So Rabbi Yishmael learns from there that Lo Mitama V'Imitama Levarel, that a special halacha that when a kohen becomes impure to 7 relatives, he only can become impure to the 7 relatives if the body is intact. Once the body is split up to different limbs, he's not able. The kohen cannot become impure to the relative if the limb is separated from the body, and he learns that from the words Lo Yitama, to her he can become impure, but he can't become impure to her limbs. Turning to Amud Beis. Okay. So now back to Rabbi Akiva. Now, how does Rabbi Akiva learn? Rabbi Akiva uses the 2 times to teach you, one, that it's a rishus, that he's allowed to become impure, and then the second time that it's a chayva, that he has to become impure. But how does Rabbi Akiva now learn that he can't become impure to the limbs of his relatives? Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says that the Torah wanted to just say, if the Torah was trying to just teach me that he's not allowed to, that he's not allowed to become impure to the limbs, it should have just said the word law to her. It didn't have to say the word yitama. Why does it add the word yitama? Shmamina, to teach me 3 things. Number 1, that he's allowed to become impure. That's from Kiyam L'She'erei. Then the Lo Yitama law teaches me that he can't become impure to the limbs. And the word yitama teaches me that he has to become impure to a full body. Rabbi Yishmael, now back to Rabbi Yishmael. Why does it say Lo Yitama? Why does it add the word yitama if we could just say law? So I did because of law, because of nami yitama. Just to be symmetric and to make the pasuk flow well, it says the word lo yitama to her. He should become impure. Look at the Tani Debei Rabbi Yishmael, as we learned before from the house of Rabbi Yishmael, the Tani Debei Rabbi Yishmael, the Yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael taught. Call parsha shenever v'nishnes. Any parsha in the Torah that says 2 times lo nishnes elo b'shvil davar shenis chadash ba. Since it's something that's a chiddush, the Torah reiterates it and says it twice, but you don't have to learn separate halacha from every word. Okay, that's case number 2. Case number 3 that we learned this machlekes between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva is the pasuk in Parshas Bahar lo elam bahem ta'avodu, that you have to make this Eved Knani work forever. Rishus divrei Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael says that this is a rishus; it's a permission. Rabbi Akiva says that it's actually an obligation. My time with Rabbi Yishmael. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Yishmael that he says that it's a rishus? So he says like this: the pasuk in Parshas Shoftim says that when the Yidden come into Eretz Yisrael, they have to kill out the 7 nations that live there, the Knani, Chiti, Amori, Prizi, etc. And it says, the Torah expresses that with the words, Lo Yisachai Kol Neshama, you can't let any person live. So Itzrich, Nami, the Torah says that you have to kill out everyone in Eretz Yisrael, all those 7 nations. So now the Torah has to say the word, the pasuk, to give you permission to allow certain people to live. Which people? The Tanya, we learn in a brayso. Oh, sorry. To allow you someone from any other nation, a man from a different nation. That had a relation with a woman from the 7 nations, and they had a child, so you have a kid that his father is not from Eretz Yisrael, and his mother is from Eretz Yisrael. The Torah is giving you permission to by him to, first of all, to allow him to live, because the obligation to kill out the 7 nations was only people that their father comes from the 7 nations. If the mother was from the 7 nations, but the father was not from the 7 nations, he was not included in this obligation to kill out the 7 nations. And therefore, the Torah says, to teach you that there's a case where you don't have to kill them out, and you have a rishus that you could keep them alive, you could buy them, and that's when the father comes from a different nation. The Tanya, like we learned in a brayso, how do we know that a man from a different nation, that marries a Knanis, that marries a woman from Eretz Yisrael, and they have a child, that you're able to buy him as a slave, and meaning by extension that you're able to keep him alive. Talmud Leimar, because we learned in the pasuk in Parshas Bahar, also from the sons of the settlers that live with you. Mehim tiknu, you can buy from them, you can buy slaves from them. So now so maybe the pasuk is also talking about a man from Eretz Yisrael that marries a woman from outside of Eretz Yisrael, and they have a child together, that you can buy him also as a slave. So that they gave birth in your land, from those that were born in your land, not from those that live in your land. And Rashi says that the minig was that the man would move to the place where the woman lived. So if they were born in Eretz Yisrael, it means that the mother, usually in most cases, it meant that the mother is from Eretz Yisrael, and the father is not from Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, since the father is not from Eretz Yisrael, you're able to keep him alive. Okay. So Rabbi Yishmael says that we have the pasuk to teach you that in this case, where the father is not from Eretz Yisrael, you could keep him alive and you could even buy him as a slave. So it's a rishus. Rabbi Akiva said that Leilam Bem Taved is a chayva mimehem tikinu nafka. He says, what are you talking about? The Brisa just brought a pasuk that says that if the father is from outside of Eretz Yisrael and the mother is from Eretz Yisrael, mehem tiknu, you could buy from them, you could buy slaves from them. So Rabbi Akiva says, I learned that from the pasuk itself. So what do I need the extra pasuk that by an Evet Knani you have to keep him forever? So it's l'chayva to teach me that you're not allowed to free an Evet Knani. Rabbi Yishmael says no. The pasuk bahem. So Rabbi Yishmael Taka agrees. He says you're right. I learned that there shows that you're able to keep them alive from the pasuk. That you're able to buy from them. However, now I have the pasuk Leilam Mem Tavodu. You, Rabbi Akiva, say that it's teaching you a chayva that you're not allowed to free your Evet Knani. So says Rabbi Yishmael, Bahem v'loy ba'achechem. The pasuk is teaching you a special din. Leilam Bahem Tavodu, that you keep the Evet Knani forever. But your brethren, the Yidden, if you have an Evet Ivri, you're not allowed to keep him forever. So the pasuk Leilam Mem Tavodu was teaching you a different din. That by a goy you're able to keep him forever, but not by a Yid. Rabbi Akiva says, hello. You're telling me that Bohem is to tell you that only a goy you can keep forever and not a Yid. You're not keeping a Jewish slave forever. It comes from that same pasuk. It says, you should keep them forever. But your brethren, the Yidden, one man with his brother, you can't give him hard labor, and by extension, obviously, you can't keep him forever like a non-Jewish slave. So Rabbi Akiva says that the end of the pasuk tells you that a Yid can't be treated like a goy, so you're not allowed to keep him forever, and you're not allowed to give him hard labor. So what's the beginning of the pasuk? To teach you, it's to teach you that you have to keep him forever, and you're not allowed to free a non-Jewish slave. So now Rabbi Yishmael says, Taka, you're right. You learn it from the end of the pasuk, you learn it from the middle of the pasuk. Since it says since the Torah is telling you that by your brethren you're not allowed to give them hard labor, so nami bahem. It gives you the opposite. It gives you the contrast by the goyish slave. The Keditanya, like we learned from the debate Rabbi Yishmael, from the house of Rabbi Yishmael, the ton of debate Rabbi Yishmael, the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael taught, Kol parsha shenemar v'nishnes, any parsha that it says 2 times, v'nishnes ela b'shvil davar shenis chadish, well, since it's something that's a chiddush, the Torah says it twice to reiterate that fact. Okay, good. So that's the machlekes Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Akiva, Rishus, and Chayva. Next, Amar Rav Chisda said, Zenusa b'beisa, when you have adultery in the house, kikarya l'shumsha, it is as destructive to a house as the karya worm is to a sesame seed. The Amar of Chisda says that tukva bebesa, the anger in a house, kikarya l'shumsha, is as destructive to the house as the karya worm to the sesame seeds. And says the Gemara that idi, both of these, the adultery and the anger, are beitzar dafka with the woman. Havel begavra, but with the husband, leis lamba, it does not have such a bad effect because the woman has a bigger effect on what goes on in her house, and it means both in a spiritual way and a physical way. It destroys the house. The Meiri says that what's the karya, the shemshema? What's this karya worm that eats up the sesame seed? Meiri says that the karya worm goes inside the sesame seed and devours and demolishes the sesame seed from the inside. So when a person looks on the outside of the sesame seed, it looks like a regular seed. It looks wonderful, but he doesn't realize that in the inside it's actually very dysfunctional, and there's this destruction happening from the inside, and eventually it's all going to collapse. The Amar of Chisda says more on this Indian. In the beginning, before the Jewish people stumbled with the sin of znus, of adultery, the Shechina used to dwell with every single Jew. Remember, like it says in the pasuk, that the Eibishter, Hashem, your God, goes together with you amongst your camp. Once they sinned with adultery, the Shechina left them. Remember, like it says, the pasuk continues over there in Parashat Kisetse, that there shouldn't be seen amongst you an improper thing. And Hashem will leave from behind you. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rav Yenasan. Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani said in the name of Rav Yenasan, anyone that does one mitzvah in this world, this mitzvah will precede him and go in front of him to the next world. Like it says in the pasuk in Yeshaya, that your righteousness will go before you. Anyone that does an avera in this world, anyone that sins in this world, It envelops him, and it'll go before him to the day of judgment. Like it says in the pasuk, darkam, that their ways will envelop them. Yalu b'toyu, they will enter into the vanity, and they'll be lost. Rabbi Eliezer says that Kshura Bekekela, this Avera will be stuck to him like a dog. Shanamar, like it says in the pasuk, it says about Yosef that Potiphar's wife, when Yosef was in Mitzrayim, when he was 17 years old, and he was sold as a slave by his brothers to Potiphar, the servant of Parai, and his wife tried to seduce Yosef because Yosef was a very pretty guy. And the wife tried to seduce him, and it says in the pasuk that Yosef, every day that she would come and she would try to seduce him, it says, he didn't listen to her, to sleep with her or to be with her. And the question is, why does it have to say 2 times, it means the same thing. So says the Gemara, that he didn't want to sleep with her in this world. And liyasima, in order not to be with her in the future world, because when a person doesn't have Avera, it attaches itself to him like a dog. Like a dog always escorts the owner, so too in Avera in the next world. Okay. Shan Hassam, we learned in the Mishnah later in Perek Hey that Shahaya Badin, we would have thought that Ma Eidos Harishayna. So just for context, in this Mishnah, when we're going to be talking about Eidos Harishayna and Eidos Achrayna, Eidos Harishayna is referring to the first testimony, is referring to the witnesses that saw the stira, that saw the seclusion. We're finished with the keynote, with the warning. Now moving on to the seclusion. So Eidos Harishayna means the seclusion. We're going to see this in the end. And Eidos Achrayna, the later testimony is talking about witnesses that said that they saw an actual act of cohabitation between the man and the woman, like we said before, like we said yesterday, that in that case, she would be forever forbidden to her husband, to be with her husband, and she gets divorced and she doesn't get the ksiva money. That's Eidos Harishayna and Eidos Achrayna. So Tanan Hassam, we learned in the Mishnah in Perek Hey, but then we would have thought that Eidos Harishayna she'enei sarta Yisraelim, that just like the Eidos Harishayna, the first testimony, the testimony of stira, of seclusion. Miskayemes be'ed echad. Sorry, that the Eidos of seclusion, which doesn't make her usher forever. Why? Because there's a way out. If she's taka innocent, she drinks the water in the Beis Hamikdash and she's exonerated. And there we said that you need 2 witnesses. The halach is like Rabbi Yeshua that you need 2 witnesses. So Eidos Achrayna, the later testimony about witnesses that saw actual cohabitation, that there she actually becomes usher to her husband forever. In addition, like this guy we would think that it has to be also with 2 witnesses. So Talmud Lemar comes to pasuk to tell you by Sotah that there isn't. Like we said yesterday, that the word aid means 2 witnesses. That there isn't 2 witnesses, but there is 1 witness that saw the actual cohabitation. And the special pasuk teaches you that by the sight of actual cohabitation between the adulterer and the adulteress, between the noyev and the noyefes, 1 witness is enough. Now the Gemara is going to say we should learn that now backwards, just like we said that by Eidos Achrayna, the actual testimony of cohabitation, it is enough to have 1 witness. And that taka makes her usher forever. So that's a more chamordika thing. It's a more stringent din that she's going to be usher to her husband forever. And we believe 1 witness. So you would think that the first testimony, the testimony of seclusion, which doesn't make her usher to her husband forever, it makes her usher for now, but when she drinks the Sotah water, she'll be exonerated. So there you should also believe 1 witness. So Talmud Lemar, so no, we have a Gzeira Shava about Ervas Davar, about Inyonim, about any testimony really in the Torah. And we have the word davar. In Parsha Shoftim, you have also the word davar, and you have davar. And over there, it's talking about 2 witnesses clearly. So over here, you also need to have 2 witnesses. Just like in Parsha Shoftim, it means 2 witnesses. The Gzeira Shava, davar, teaches you that in the witnesses in Parsha Nasoi about the Edei Stira has to be 2 witnesses. So by stira it has to be 2 witnesses, but by tuma it's only 1 witness, and they're both from Sukkot. So the Gemara asks, we learned that you need to have 2 witnesses by stira, by seclusion from the Gzeira Shava of davar. Mi ba nafka. Yesterday we learned it from something else. It says in the Torah that ve'edein ba, that by actual tumah, by the act of cohabitation, that there wasn't two witnesses over there. There's only one witness, and one witness is believed ba. In this case, in the case of cohabitation, ba v'lo b'kinoi, but not by warning. Warning, you need two witnesses. Ba v'lo b'stira, not by stira, by seclusion. You need to have two witnesses there. That's what we learned yesterday. Mi boy. So the Gemara says you're right. We learned that from there. Mi boy le hachinami. You also need the pasuk of davar davar for something else. Talmud lemar ba. So first of all, going back, the proof that you need to have two witnesses for kina and stira taka comes from the word ba, the edein ba, like we learned yesterday. So now separately, you have to sort of amend the Mishnah that this davar, this gzera shav that we're bringing is for a different case. It's for a case where you don't have kina, you don't have stira. There's no warning, there's no seclusion. In a regular case where witnesses see a woman cheating on her husband, and the husband didn't warn her before. So there you need to have two witnesses. How do I know that? I know that b'tuma ba'alma, in a regular case of adultery, where there was no warning before. But like there's no warning, there's no seclusion. We don't believe one witness. How do we know that? You have the gzera shav davar from money. Just like by money, edim shnayim, it's two witnesses. Afkan edim shnayim. So too over here, it's two witnesses. And now, just to clarify what we just read, Tanu Rabbanon, the Brisa says, what does it mean? First testimony, the Eidos Harishona, Zayedus Stira. That means the testimony of the seclusion, like I said in the beginning of us quoting this mission. Eidos Achrona, the last testimony, Zayedus Tuma, this is the testimony of actual cohabitation. And Be'ezer Hashem Yisvarech, we will continue tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.